Welcome back for part 2 of what is CARPS, the computer-aided role-playing system. I'm Murray, the game designer and developer of this monstrosity, and we're now looking at map design. Specifically, if you're drawing a map, what things can you include to make it a detailed and useful map? What can you include to give players interesting, or dare I even say it, tactical choices? Also, if you haven't seen the other What is CARPS videos, you can check them out on my channel. To continue our previous example, our lost peasant is still trying to find his way off the mountain. He knows civilization is south and heads that way, finding what he thinks may be a pass. Now, we want a map for this area, and I'm going to use the CARPS map designer to create one. Let's get started. As you can see, the inbuilt map designer can easily display a full colour map if you've got one, but I've also designed it to make drawing simple maps as easy as possible. Maybe you've got the skill to make awesome looking maps in other dedicated programs, but if you're like most people, you'll probably find drawing a few coloured lines quicker and easier. While I'm drawing this map, I'd like to share my suggestions on how to make a good map. And talking about this, do you really need maps? And if so, do they really need to be glorious full colour masterpieces or something simpler? I think full colour masterpieces can be great for players to look at, and can add to the immersion and tone of your game, so where available, yes. But often, a map just needs to convey important spatial information to the players, helping them understand where their characters are, and ensuring everyone is on the same page, so to speak. Personally, I'm not a fan of RPGs that handle combat with theatre of the mind. I prefer to be able to see the layout of the battlefield, as it helps me get a sense of where allies and opponents are relative to each other, where my character can find cover, where the party might be able to use the terrain to their advantage, and so on. As a result, I almost always break out a map when the party are exploring or when a fight is on the cards. Full colour maps do look great, and there certainly are lots available. If you've got one on hand that represents the current area in your game, then you're set. But sometimes nothing really suits, or you'd just like to draw your own. In that case, how do we make drawing the map as easy as possible, and what do we really need to include to make our map interesting and useful? At a minimum, you'll generally need some walls, unless the area is outside and there's no buildings or ruins. Apart from that, there's so many other things you could include to make it more interesting, but coming up with ideas can be a challenge. So here's a list of suggestions to get you started. I've come up with a list of 12 things to think about when drawing a map. First of all, think about the map size or scale in relation to what needs to be accommodated. How much space do you need? Think about entry and exit points, corridor widths, room sizes. What are the party facing here? What about ranged attacks? How much movement or freedom of movement do you want? What about the objectives of the party and the enemy's objectives? A map that's too small can end up feeling cramped and can limit tactical options for both sides. A map that's too big can result in an encounter dragging out, or where some party members can't do anything useful. Beyond that, we've got number 2, things that block line of sight, such as walls and structures. Maybe you want to hide a big monster around a corner, or just prevent the party from seeing the whole area till they're in the middle of it. At this time, you should also think about how creatures can enter and leave the area, and move from one part to another within the area. Generally, it's a good idea to give the party multiple ways through, and vary how obvious these are, as well as how easy or inviting they appear to be. Number 3, things that provide cover. Maybe these don't block line of sight, but creatures can still use them to hide or avoid missile fire. Columns, boulders, logs, and furniture can all provide cover. Also think about static cover versus movable cover. Tables can be overturned, or used to block stairways, stairs, and so on. Number 4, on a related note to cover, and one that you might not have thought about, is lighting. Is the area outside, or bathed in natural light? If not, how is it lit, and where are these light sources? Areas away from light will be dim or dark, and could be used to hide. Anyone standing in a lit area will be easier to see, especially for those hiding in the dark. Also note that seeing into darkness is actually harder when you've got a light source near you. Number 5, difficult terrain. Thickets or scrub, rocky or muddy ground, fallen trees, collapsed sections of wall that can be clambered over. All of these can slow down movement and leave creatures exposed. Such areas can be used to break up a large open area or help create choke points, which brings us to the next one. Number 6. Choke points and obstructions. These can be natural or engineered, or often a natural feature modified to make a better choke point. A choke point is an area that restricts one group so they can't all contribute to a fight at once, and often channels them into a small space. These can be used by a smaller group to prevent being outnumbered, but depending on the circumstances can also help a larger side that has substantial missile capability. Number 7. Elevation change, high ground versus low ground, stairs, etc. Are there stairs or inclines that will slow creatures down? Where is the high ground? Does it give ranged attackers an advantage? Keep in mind that areas of elevation change can also have other effects such as blocking line of sight. Number 8. Again on a related note, cliffs, pits, bridges, etc. Anything that creatures can be pushed off for some effect. Obviously making a creature fall 100 feet onto rocks is going to be pretty impactful, but knocking someone in plate armor into deep water can be just as deadly. Number 9. Environmental hazards. Like I just mentioned, deep water, also deep mud or quicksand, hot springs or lava, unstable ground like cracked cliff edges, and so on. This is often similar to difficult terrain, but is also going to have some additional adverse effects. Number 10. Destructible or interactive terrain or features. These can include unstable pillars or boulders, a section of wall that looks fragile, and so on. They're generally things that aren't having an effect right now, but with creature action could suddenly have an impact. When something like this is added to your map, it's a good idea to drop some hints about it, especially if someone asks a relevant question or their character is being observant. Number 11. Other objects or details of interest. Anything in the scene that may be interesting or useful, such as altars, statues, niches, banners or tapestries, valuables or equipment. These could range from mundane items that hint at the purpose of an area, all the way up to MacGuffins and plot devices. And finally, hidden things. Anything that characters are not going to notice or find unless they search for them or succeed on some check. Things like hidden treasure, secret doors, and traps. Regarding traps, they don't need to be ancient, magical, or highly engineered. As an example, a few rotten planks on a bridge, so the unsuspecting fall through, definitely counts as a trap. Hopefully that's given you some ideas for your next map. Of course, a single map doesn't need all these things, I think that would be overkill, but it probably should have some of them. So now you've thought about what you want on your map. If you were using this map designer, how would you go about drawing it? I'll just quickly demonstrate the functions of this map designer so you get an idea of how easy it is to draw a map with it. One thing to note is that these maps are integrated with the CARPS Fog of War. Specifically, any walls you draw with a black or dark brown line will automatically block line of sight when Fog of War is turned on. We'll see that in action at the end. And just for reference, in CARPS, creature movement and position is actually on a 1 foot grid, so the 5 foot grid displayed here is really just a guide. Also, creatures don't take up a square, they take up a circle, and they have reach circles around that, so you don't need to be adjacent to another creature to hit it, you just have to be within the reach circle. After significant playtesting, we've found that this makes tactical movement much more natural and organic than the commonly used 5 foot grid. Okay, how does the map designer work? Let's just open a map and have a play around with it. First of all, this is another cool map from Dice Grimorium, link below. Maps can be tactical or strategic in scale. Tactical is the default, and it has an underlying 2-inch grid that map objects snap to. Strategic maps are 1,000 times larger, allowing entire continents to be drawn. Maps can also have levels, up to 99, which should be enough for anyone. For each level, a full colour map can be displayed as a background image, as you can see. If the map has walls that you want to block line of sight, it's as simple as drawing some black lines where the walls are over the top of the map. And that will block line of sight. You can zoom in or out with the mouse wheel. I'm going to remove that image now, so we don't really need it. And you can see where I put those walls. Just get rid of those for the moment. So maps are comprised of map objects. Each map object is either a line, a Bezier curve, or text. When you want to draw something, you just select the object type and properties. And right click to start drawing. So you right click and drag to create an object, left click to select, shift and drag to multi-select, and double click to deselect. If you select something, you can move it around. Let's say we want a curve. You also get control points. I copy that and paste another one, and another one. You can select them all and press G or the group button, and now they'll be grouped together. If you wanted to change one of those rather than the whole lot, you press U or ungroup, and that will ungroup them. And G again to regroup. You can also change the selected object's properties at any time. With the update button. Any one level map can be saved as a component, and it'll appear in this list on the left. If you click on one, it'll create a copy in your current map. And it also puts it into the clipboard, so you can Control V and create another one. Let's say we wanted to add some trees. Just find a tree component. So let's put a tree on the map and a copy of it in the clipboard. And we can use the populate button, which is pretty cool, to create lots of trees. So if I zoom out a bit, we use the size and angle fields to control how much bigger or smaller each tree instance is going to be, and how much you want to rotate it. So 30, you'd have 12 different angles it could choose from, and then the populate button, and you say, well, how many do you want? Let's say we want 30 trees, and they'll put each tree in a random location on the screen, as so. So pretty easy to make a forest if you wanted to. If some of those need to be moved, you can just drag them. Like so. If you screw something up, like accidentally drag a control point, then Control Z will undo. And finally, you can also create hidden areas. Let's say we want a trapdoor in the stable, and we want that to be hidden. We just click the hide button, and we can give it a name. And it disappears. We go back to the display tab, you can see it's in the hidden groups. If you select it, it'll appear. Control, And you can see it appearing and disappearing. If you want to show all hidden areas, just tick that. And that's covered the basics for the map designer. So at this point we want to see the Fog of War in action. We'll load the Lost in the Cold Encounter again. Here's our peasant. He survived the night and has found a possible way off the mountain, a pass guarded by some old ruins. So we need to load the map we just drew. Snowy Pass. There it is. In order to test the wolves blocking line of sight, I think he's being chased by some wolves. So let's create some. So on wolf, new creature. We have one wolf. I think we need a second one. And he'll be heading through the gate. And of course we've got to turn Fog of War on. Okay, so in CARPS, creatures have facing, and they can't see behind them, generally, unless they take a scouting action. So as you can see, you can hear something, so we have a little ear icon next to that wolf, and he can't hear the other one because it's further away. If he turns around, then he can see them. So you get little eye icons. That's one aspect of the Fog of War. If he goes through here, you can still see them. If he moves to here, you can't see them anymore because the black lines are blocking line of sight. One of them moves to there, it can see him and he can see it. So blocking line of sight is really that simple. If there's a black or dark brown line in between one object and the other, then they can't see each other. However, that doesn't stop you from being able to hear something if it's making enough noise. Okay, so he's running away from the wolves as best he can. He really needs to find some place that he can hole up and shelter from them, or they're going to tear him apart. And he spies a solid looking shack. As he gets closer, he realizes the front door is blocked by a large pile of snow. The GM decides that's going to be a difficult strength check to get enough snow out of the way to open the door before the wolves get him. But fortunately, he's got a shovel. That's like the right tool for the job. So the check is only going to be medium difficulty. So he gets there, the wolves are closing in, and he needs to make a check. So it was going to be 24, but we'll reduce it to 20 because he's got the shovel, and it takes 5 ticks. This is a 2d10 system, so he needs to roll, as you can see, he needs to roll 8 or more on the dice to be successful. He only rolls a 6. So he's failed that, but only by a couple of points. So we will say that one of the wolves gets a bite on him before he gets through the door. So he's almost through, and then this one gets close enough to have a bite. That'll do it. It can't latch on because he's getting through the doorway and escaping from it. He takes 8.5 hit points of piercing damage from the bite, but manages to get in through the door and close it behind him. His hit points don't look too good. Now, every time you take damage in CARPS, there's also a risk of critical injuries, which will be under here. And he's lucky. No critical injuries, no bleeding or anything. We'll leave this demo here. Just to wrap up, I hope you found some of my map drawing tips useful. And keep an eye out for the next video where we'll dive into adding creatures and items to an encounter. If you find creating NPCs a bit laborious, you should check it out to see how quick and easy it is when everything is auto-generated. For more info on CARPS, the rulebook and other bits and pieces, check out my website and of course the YouTube channel. If I keep mentioning my dice roller, you'll get sick of it, so I won't. So that's all for now, folks, and may your characters always be awesome.